Hi, I'm Jania Blacklock, and I'm in the Online Anatomy 2 class. I reached out to Dr. Embry when we started this chapter and told her about my history of I had dealt with preeclampsia in my first pregnancy and also some issues with trisomy 13. And she responded and asked me to make a little video to tell y'all what it was like. So, what was preeclampsia like? Well, I was 19 years old and pregnant, huge pregnant, in the middle of summer. I was miserable, swollen, and hurting. Which, when you say that, that's typical for a normal pregnancy, especially in the summertime. So, honestly, I didn't think nothing of it. But in June of my pregnancy, I was probably about, I think, 20 weeks along. I started having elevated blood pressure at my doctor visits, which I had issues and found out in April, May, that my child had deformities and was not going to live, called trisomy 13, which I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But about my blood pressure, it was elevated more than normal, but my doctor, he blew it off. He goes, "It's okay. It's hot. It's summertime. Just rest, drink water." He just acted like it was nothing, even though I felt like crap. I was staying swollen. Like, my fingers was so huge. Like, I probably had 40 pounds worth of water weight just on me. Not pregnancy weight, water weight. My feet were so swollen that I had no formality of feet. It was just round with toes sticking out. My ankles and my legs and my feet just ran together. There was no definition. You couldn't see my ankles. I was just swollen. Completely swollen, miserable. But once again, I didn't think nothing of it. It's my first pregnancy. I just thought it was normal because swelling is part of pregnancy. So I went on. I kept getting sharp pains all the time in my chest, in my legs. I kept headaches. I was exhausted, completely exhausted. I didn't want to do anything. I was just miserable. And the doctor kept blowing it off. He goes, "Oh, you're showing normal signs of pregnancy. It's just normal. So a few weeks later, it was July 4th. My ex-husband's mom got married, and I couldn't hardly walk. I was in so much pain. Called the doctor that night at the after hours. I wanted to go into the hospital. He advised me not to. He said, "You're fine, rest your feet, lift your feet up, take a day off, don't do anything." It didn't help. So he made me another appointment. It was about a week later. Still, my blood pressure was high. He didn't do anything. So the following week, after my other week appointment, I told him I wanted to come in and get seen, that something was not right. My daughter had slowly stopped moving as much as she usually did. And he came in, and I told him, I was like, "I want to do the 24-hour test where they collect your pee for 24 hours and they test your urine for the proteins and all the levels. Because once again, my blood pressure was getting higher, and he didn't care. Sure enough, that night, after my doctor's appointment, I stayed with my mom because I was just scared. I was not feeling right. The doctor didn't care. So that night, I couldn't sleep. I felt like something was weighing on me. Like a rock was on my chest, and I could not get up. It was hurting so bad. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was maybe having a panic attack. But after finding out that was a symptom of preeclampsia, is chest pain. Also, I had extreme migraines. I couldn't lift my head up without a shooting pain going through my whole body. I was having flashes in my vision and blur vision. Sorry. That night, I didn't get no sleep. The next morning, I was still feeling like crap. I went back to my apartment, called my friend, and told her, I want to go to the hospital. I'm not playing around anymore. There's something wrong, and I want to find out what was wrong. So I went to the hospital. They did some blood work. They did some urine tests. They came in. They said that my blood pressure was deadly high. I think it was like 200 and something over 200, 300 over 200. I'm not sure. This was 10 years ago. I cannot remember for sure details without having paperwork in front of me. But it was very high. Like, they were shocked I wasn't seasoned already. And they checked my urine. I had 2 nurses that kept coming in and out in shock. You could just tell in their face that they were in shock that I was still just standing there or sitting there without my body reacting worse. So I had no reflexes. They could not find a reflex on my body, not one. They had 2 or 3 nurses come in and do it. They couldn't find any. They checked my urine, and I remember, like it was yesterday, the nurse goes, "Oh my God," when she was in the bathroom checking my urine. She came out, didn't say a word to me, just looked at me and left. Got another nurse, came in there, checked it, and they were talking, and they came out, not even talking to a doctor yet, and said, "We're prepping you for a C-section. You're going to have an emergency C-section. You have preeclampsia, and you're about to go into seizures. There's no way that it's not going to happen anytime soon." So they were prepping me for my C-section, and I'm only at 25, 26 weeks, I think it was. So there was a good chance, which we already knew my daughter was probably not going to make it, so I was scared. They had pumped me with metabolism. Sorry, that's not right. They had put potassium and magnesium. That's what it is, not metabolism. Sorry. Magnesium and potassium. They pumped him with it as fast as they could. And I mean, they gave me, I think, 2 bags at least of each before my C-section to try to lower my blood pressure because it was so critically high. I remember getting sick. A feeling came all over me, and I was throwing up constantly. I was not allowed to have any visitors at the time until my blood pressure was back to normal. And I wasn't allowed to have lights on. I was not allowed to have my phone. Nothing. I was scared to death. I didn't know what was happening. This is my first pregnancy. I'm only 19 years old when this is happening. So finally, they get my blood pressure down. And they moved me to have my emergency C-section. From where they had me so doped up on these medicines, I was in and out. And I think my blood pressure spiked up again in my C-section, and I passed out. After that, I don't remember much. Just the recovery was very miserable. I wasn't allowed to have any visitors most of the time I was there because my blood pressure kept spiking. Anytime my blood pressure spiked, they rushed everyone out and made me lay there, sleep, rest, and gave me more medicine. I really highly suggest, please, if you're pregnant or know someone's pregnant, do not play around with how you feel. It is very serious. I was almost into seizures. If I had listened to my doctor did not take me serious on how bad I was feeling. And just pay attention to your body. Your body tells you when something's wrong, especially when you're pregnant. So, also, now I wanted to talk to y'all about trisomy 13. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of it. I know I hadn't. Usually Down syndrome or other ones is more popular, I guess you could say, for people to know of for DNA issues in children. Well, trisomy 13 is a very rare disorder, disease, birth defect, however you want to call it. Sometimes it's called a Peteau syndrome. I don't know if I said that right. About 9 times out of 10, the child won't live more than 24 hours. They usually have a mortality rate of dying within the first week. There's a very, 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 very few that I've ever done research on that has lived past 10 years old, and those are ones that was lucky and didn't have that many birth defects, like vital birth defects. They were usually more mentally slow with speech and thinking and motor skills. But it is a very rare case and disease. There's usually about 20,000 cases per year, and usually about 1 out of 16,000 babies have it. They usually cause very severe abnormalities when it comes to physical or intellectual abilities. It can range, like I said earlier, from just simple things to major organs being not formed right. But the trisomy 13 is the process of where your DNA did not form correctly during the genetics. It's the baby has a 13th chromosome, an extra 13th chromosome. And this can be, sometimes it is hereditary. Luckily, in my case, it was not a hereditary thing. Once they did more testing on my blood and my ex-husband's. But sometimes a father or a mother can have an egg or sperm that is carrying an extra chromosome, 13th chromosome in their DNA, and it will cause this abnormality. Or there is a fluke when the baby's being formed and the body creates an extra chromosome, as we've learned in semester 1 that it is possible. And usually your body will terminate the pregnancy sometimes, but sometimes it will not if it doesn't catch it. But it's higher chance for you to get this if you're older, an older woman getting pregnant. Of course, just like Down syndrome, your chances go up higher once you get older. I think it's like 30 or 40. Your chances get more higher for it to happen. But I was only 19 years old. This is my first pregnancy. It caused my daughter, we found out at the 14-week scan, the anatomy scan, that something was not right. The ultrasound tech didn't tell us that something was wrong, but you could tell in her face, she's like, I can't find something. We're going to have to reschedule, talk to the doctor, something like that. And my baby was not cooperating. Of course, yeah, they're unpredictable. But she ended up referring us to a specialist, and they thought for sure she had water on her brain, which I think they called it Jughead back then as a nickname. So we thought, oh, it's nothing, they can just pull the fluid off her head or something like that. It's more common than what was really wrong with her. But once we got referred to a specialist, they did another anatomy scan, and the specialist told us, it's not looking good, that it's not what we thought it was, that he had thought a pretty good idea that it was either a Smith's disorder or trisomy 13. So we had let me make sure, I'm probably going to say this wrong, an amniocentesis, I think is how you say it, done. And if you don't know nothing about it, it's usually what they do for DNA testing for the babies. It's this really huge needle, and I mean huge needle. And it's not small either in width. They take it and they put it in your belly, going through your uterus, and they take fluid and DNA from the baby and test it. And when you have this, there is a high chance that you have to be on bed rest and all this other things, because it could cause trauma in your body and you could lose your baby. But we had that done. A week later, the doctor calls me and confirms that we have trisomy 13. So with this, we were told my daughter will probably not live past being born. With her severe of case, they said that whenever the umbilical cord would get cut, she would 9 times out of 10, she would more likely die. They also told me that my baby would probably be stillborn, that more like that she could die inside me before I had her. I found this out between 14 and 20 weeks along, not even halfway through my pregnancy. It was very hard. I found out I was having a girl through this process, and that she wasn't going to live. Um, like I told you earlier, I made it to about 20, it was like 25, 26 weeks. I was not full term yet whenever I put preeclampsia. It got to the point where I had an emergency C-section. So that day whenever they had her, I didn't expect them to pull out a live baby. I was scared. At first, she wasn't breathing. But once they cleared her nasal and mouth, she started screaming. I cried because they told me that she would not be alive right now at that moment. But they rushed her off. I got to see her for a very short few moments before they rushed her off to find out what was all critically wrong with her. She had one eye missing. The other eye was blind. Half of her brain was not there. Her ears were not fully developed. They were folded like this. She had no nose at all, or the bone. Like, it was just flat. She had a cleft palate and cleft lip. She had 4 holes in her heart. 1 kidney didn't work. She had skin grafts missing in her hair. Luckily, she had no extra hands or toes or any true bad physical appearance abnormalities. Hers was more internal. They had asked me what my plans were. Do I put her on a ventilator? Or do I let nature take its course? Because it is a high risk. Even if I did put her on a ventilator, she would just be a vegetable. So I chose to let nature take its course. I was not going to put my daughter through more pain and surgeries just for her prolong her death. Because in the end result, especially with how bad her case was, she was going to pass away sooner or later. She was already a fighter. She was not supposed to be alive. She was supposed to die whenever they cut the umbilical cord, is what the doctors told me. Both doctors. So I wanted to cherish every moment I could with her while I had it. So I decided not to put her on oxygen. I decided not to do any care. I fed her like a normal baby. I treated her like a normal baby. I fed her. I changed her. She was alive for me for 17 hours. The doctors were shocked and amazed that she lasted as long as she did. Her oxygen kept bottoming out because where her lungs was not, also, her lungs was not developed right either. And I have here a picture of her. Let's see if I can get a glare off of it. As you can see, her eye on one of them is flat and not rounded, where she's missing her eye. Her other eye was blind. She had no nose, just a cleft palate and lip. And the rest, she looks normal. I sent Embry pictures of her ultrasound, if y'all would like to look at them also. That you can see her bone formation where her forehead is flatter than it's supposed to be, and she doesn't have her nose bone. Also, it will show that she has no brain in her front brain. She was missing her frontal brain. So even if she did live and I put her on oxygen or a ventilator, she wouldn't have had any motor skills, congenital thinking, speech. A lot of that was not going to be happening. Also, I wanted to talk about the RH factor. I don't know if any of y'all know anything about it. It is also another pregnancy thing that people need to watch out for if they are a negative blood type. If a mother is a negative blood type and the father has a positive blood type, their blood, the mother's blood, will try to cancel out the father's if the baby is a positive. I have that. I had to have 2 shots of what was it called? Immune globin that would help my body not create RH antibodies to attack my baby if it was a positive blood type, because I'm O negative. Your body will trigger that there's a wrong type of blood in it, because O negative can only have O negative blood. It is a universal blood unless you need blood. So your body will attack it like it is a virus or something. It's not supposed to be there. So for people that have that, they have to get 2 shots. One at like 20-something weeks, 28 weeks. And then the second is 72 hours after your birth. Luckily, if you're pregnant your first time, you don't have to worry about it. You do have to get your shots just in case, but you don't have to worry about your body trying to harm your baby, because your body has not built up any antibodies to RH. It has not mixed blood with your baby, because until you're birthing your baby out, your bloods do not mix with each other. This shot is to help prevent from more than one baby. From after your first baby on, and you need it if your baby is positive. I've had to have mine every time I've had a kid. I've had to get a shot after to keep my body from creating the RH factor of antibodies. But I think that's it. Don't give up if you're struggling to have babies. I had a molar pregnancy after my trisomy baby, which is also very common to have miscarriages after you have a trisomy 13 baby. It is very common to have a miscarriage more than once. Luckily, I only had one, and they called it a molar pregnancy, where your baby stops growing, but your body still thinks it's pregnant, so your uterus is still growing. So I ended up having to have a D&C to stop that miscarriage, because I didn't know when my body would recognize that the baby was going to be passed, since my uterus had grown for 4 weeks, even after my baby had passed away at 4 weeks long. But hopefully I did not bore y'all. Y'all have a good day. Thank you for letting me share my story. Sorry.